When I tell people that I prefer Terraria to Minecraft, I'm usually met with a bit of hostility. People will say, Terraria just copied Minecraft, or Terraria isn't as successful, and while there exists some validity to those points, this isn't going to change my mind. What started out as a small indie project grew into one of the highest selling and most played games on Steam, and while there are bits of Minecraft built into its core concept, Terraria grew to be so much more, and has honestly been one of the most influential games in my life. So, let's talk about it. Before we begin, as always, if you like what you see, be sure to subscribe for more videos just like this, and let me know in the comments if there are any games you'd like to see me talk about in the future. If you want to come hang out with me live, I stream 3 days a week over at twitch.tv/Triceratops_Jr. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into it. Terraria was released in 2011 on PC by a very small team called Relogic. It featured massive world exploration, mining, building, and of course, crafting. And if you haven't heard of Terraria before, you might be saying now, well, that's just Minecraft. And at its base, they are very similar games. But the way they grew really differentiated them. Terraria grew into more of a sandbox RPG, with different playstyles, world progression, a wide cast of characters, and even a bit of lore, while Minecraft stuck more to its roots, until eventually Mojang caved and started turning towards an RPG approach as well. But this isn't a video arguing about which game is better. That's a topic for another time. Today, I just want to talk about Terraria and the impact it had on me growing up. I first got Terraria on July 11th, 2011, a fact which I was actually able to check by scrolling to the very bottom of my Steam purchase history. It was actually the second Steam game I ever got. Before getting into Terraria though, my friends and I used to all play Minecraft together. Mind you, I was in probably 5th grade at this point, and I didn't really have a great computer, so Minecraft was a relatively laggy experience. But then my friend introduced me to a YouTube Let's Play of Terraria by Jesse Cox and Total Biscuit. An experience to which I credit my love of both YouTube and my love of Terraria, and honestly it was off from there. Terraria ran so smoothly on my 2006 HP desktop computer, so I all but forgot about Minecraft. No more lag for 11-year-old me. There are a number of key factors that made me love Terraria. Number 1, it featured all of the elements I enjoyed from Minecraft. There was without a doubt inspiration and maybe a little bit of copying too, a topic which I actually delved into deeper on my video from a few weeks ago about Curse of the Dead Gods. But really it made no difference to young me. Number 2, it featured far more RPG elements than Minecraft. At this point, Minecraft didn't have any story at all. No villages, no bosses, nothing. It was just a game about getting diamonds and building cool houses. But I loved MMORPGs already by this point. I'd been playing Fusion Fall and Pirates of the Caribbean Online for a few years, and so having those added elements of characters and lore really drew me in. And lastly, number 3, the game's progression actually meant something. This sounds kind of weird to say, but let me explain. In Minecraft, you would go from wood to stone to iron, etc., but once you reached those diamonds at the end of the tunnel, it just kinda stopped. Sure, you could visit the Nether if you really wanted to, but that was about it. In Terraria, it was all about building better gear to make yourself stronger so you could face off against bosses and unlock new areas like the dungeon, or prep yourself to go straight to hell so you could mine there. As you made your way through the game, you would also unlock new shopkeepers and characters that would come to live in your house, further expanding the world. This kind of progression was what I really needed to take me away from the stagnant playstyle of Minecraft. So that's why I fell in love with Terraria. But what does that mean? Why am I making this video? Well, for me, it's mainly about nostalgia, a little trip down memory lane, so in a lot of ways this is a very narcissistic video. But hey, every YouTuber is narcissistic. We just love the sound of our own voice. But if you'll indulge me just a little bit longer, I want to continue on this trip and walk through the updates that came to the game, each one making the game better. The first massive update came with 1.1 in December of 2011. With it, the game's progression was made even better, with the addition of new bosses, new ways to play, and best of all, a new difficulty. Now, you might be thinking, a new difficulty? Plenty of games have that. That's not at all special, and while in most cases you would be very right, in Terraria it was an extremely special thing. Instead of selecting a new difficulty for the game on startup, you instead have to cross a new hurdle, the Wall of Flesh. When I was younger, this thing terrified me. For starters, you have to face off against it in hell, but it also required tons of preparation to fight. You literally run for your life while being chased by a massive wall covered in eyeballs and mouths. That's some Silent Hill shit right there, not a happy sandbox game. Once you were able to beat this boss, your world automatically entered into hard mode. There was no going back. New bosses, new enemies, and of course, new loot now awaiting. But it would all be so much harder than before. That's what made this hard mode feel so special. You really had to work for it. And to think, this came out just months after I'd first gotten the game. Update 1.2 came a few years later in 2013, adding new biomes, bosses, and of course, more items. The Crimson was added to the game, which was a counterpart to the Corruption, an area that was already in the game up until that point. Making your way through the Corruption, and now the Crimson, is an essential part of the game's progression, and you could only have one or the other in your world. So adding just that extra bit of randomness to the world creation added a whole new level of replayability to the game. 2 years after that, in 2015, Update 1.3 came and brought what many people thought would be the end. In fact, Relogic even said on a few occasions that there wouldn't be any more updates. 1.3 brought a smattering of new bosses, some new mechanics, and even brought a final end-of-game event. The Lunar event was a huge experience, requiring players to fight through a gauntlet of spooky Cthulhu-esque monsters to save the world, all ending with the summoning of the Moon Lord, basically the game's final boss. This boss was extremely difficult at the time, and it still is to some extent, although you can cheese him to death pretty easily. With that though, we thought it was all over. The game had a conclusion, so there wouldn't be any more updates. Relogic thought the same thing, and for many years that's how it was. A small hotfix here and there, a few quality of life improvements, but no one expected what came in 2020. The true final update for Terraria. Patch 1.4, Journey's End. In the midst of a global pandemic, we finally got a new Terraria update, and it was beautiful. The game's changelog for this update spanned over 40 pages long. Over 1,000 new items were added to the game. To say this new update was spectacular would be an understatement. Along with all these new features also came overhauls of old features, new world generation settings including new difficulties to make the game harder than it had ever been before. But with the high risk also came high reward. New drops were added to the other difficulties, the hardest of them all being Master Mode, an experience that is not for the faint of heart. The world was already so vibrant and full, but this update really just rounded everything out. It's never a fun time knowing that a game is at its end update-wise, that there's nothing else big in the works, but I'm weirdly happy with how Journey's End rounded out the game and made it feel whole. And who knows, maybe in 5 more years Relogic will come out with something new and bigger, or maybe even Terraria 2, which I don't think we actually need, just based off of how timeless Terraria seems. In a few months, Terraria will have its 10th anniversary, and in some ways it feels like the game hasn't aged a day. I still get the same feelings of wonder I got when I was 11 years old, just playing the game for the first time. As Terraria has grown older, I've grown older as well, and we've grown together, and it's honestly amazing to see how far the game has come. Of course, I'd be happy to see more content, but in a weird way, I'd also be perfectly happy keeping Terraria the way it is right now, forever. It's a game that will always have a place in my heart, and that is something that just can't be taken away. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for more videos just like it. And don't forget to leave a comment telling me what games you'd like to hear me talk about in the future. Peace out, y'all. I'll catch you on the flip side.